Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again today on Faith Stories. As you know, on this channel, or if you're new on this channel, we chronicle the faithfulness of God. We try to talk about what God is doing in our lives. And by so doing, we hope that we'll be able to encourage each other to just keep holding on, for us to know that God is faithful. God is always faithful, no matter how it looks like. Today, I have someone with me that I am sure that a lot of ladies can relate with a story. I have with me Favour Nwabueze. I hope I pronounced your name very well. I hope I tried.
You did a good job. You did a good job.
Okay. Thanks, Favour, for joining us. So as a way of starting, can you
so much
tell
for
us a
having
little
me.
bit about yourself? And usually when we ask people to tell us about themselves, we want to know your background. How did you find Christ? What was your journey of redemption like, right? So kindly just quickly share that with us as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ardria. Thank you so much. It's an amazing privilege to be on Faith Stories today. I'm so grateful that I get to share my story. As impactful or as touching as it might be, I just pray that one or two persons are going to get impacted by it. So giving a little background about myself, my name is Favour Nwabueze. I'm an only daughter. I have three siblings. I'm the first child. So I happen to be the first child, first daughter and only daughter at the same time. And then speaking about my background in Christianity, I grew up in a Christian home. Both parents are Christian. I grew up in a Methodist home, actually. So both of my parents used to attend like the Methodist church. And at some point, we had to move houses. So it was a little bit difficult, like being able to go to Methodist church, at least the church that I was brought up in, which is this church. And so at some point we had to move from Methodist to another church. I would say that growing up, my parents instilled very profound, in-depth faith in God. And I would say that growing up, I would call myself a Christian, but I wouldn't say that I was spiritually enlightened. I knew that in every Christian home, you needed to wake up in the morning, pray to God. You needed to have like fellowship in the morning. It was sort of like it was something that almost every Nigerian growing up or a Nigerian child used to do like growing up back then. But then I wouldn't say that my understanding of God was very in depth. But I started to know God for myself. As a young Nigerian adult, I don't think you can survive in Nigeria without having to know God for yourself. It's a crazy country that we live in. So at some point, you really need to believe in something. And for me personally, what I had to believe in, at least to be able to navigate being an adult, definitely had to be God and has to be God and is still God. So that's like a little background about my Christian so far.
You know, when you were talking about growing up and the morning devotion, I remembered, good morning, Jesus, good morning. You know, all those ones that we used to sing
Exactly,
growing up.
exactly.
It was beautiful growing up in homes like that. And we thank God,
Exactly.
for your story.
Right.
Okay, so can you tell us about your journey with fibroids? What were some of the lowest moments, and how did you find the strength to persevere? So just walk us through when you found out, and you know, up until the time where you got healed, right? I might ask questions in between, but yes, just walk us through the story.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much for asking. I would say that okay. So I got diagnosed with fibroids sometime in 20. I'm not so sure the exact year, but I think that was about 5, 6 years ago. I think that was somewhere 2018 or 2019. I was on my way to work one day and I felt a very jarring pain on the right hand side of my stomach. And it was a little bit discomforting. You know, when you have like a little pinch or pierce, like just somewhere around your stomach area. I felt okay, maybe it was my menstruation, the usual cramps. It wasn't anything significant. I just monitored it for a while, but I noticed that it was persistent and the discomfort kept getting worse. So I said I was going to go to the hospital and then just go take a look at what's going on. So I went to the hospital. Mind you, my entire understanding of how hospitals work is usually you go to a hospital, you tell them you're not feeling fine. In fact, you self-diagnose and tell them that you have malaria and that they should probably like just take a look. And when I went into the hospital, they had mentioned that I would have to see a gynecologist. I was 21 at the time. I had never had a pelvic scan before, never seen a gynecologist before. I did not even know that you probably needed to have like a gynecologist. Because I felt like the only time you probably need a gynecologist is probably when you're about to give birth. So I agreed. I went to the gynecologist. I went in for a pelvic scan. And when I went in, I got my result, I think about a few hours later. And then I was told that I actually had fibroids. I was a little bit confused. I was like, what do you mean I have fibroids? I can't have fibroids. Like, what do you mean? Yes, because my understanding of what fibroids is, at least at that time, was that it could only happen to older women. That was the understanding that I had about fibroids. The only contextual understanding of fibroids that I had was I had an auntie at that time. She was in her 30s and she had fibroids. So I assumed that it was only for people who were older. So when I started asking questions, I wanted to, okay, like, what do I need to do? They're like, oh, it's nothing to worry about. You just can go home, just take some painkillers, and probably try and see if you have any man in your life that that you can consider talking to, who's probably interested in marrying you. It was a very confusing diagnosis and a very
Sorry,
confusing
permit
follow-up.
me to ask,
Yeah.
what's the correlation between the diagnosis and you finding it? Sorry, I'm laughing.
Nigerian gynecologists are the most hilarious. Like, and it was multiple gynecologists, like multiple gynecologists told me the same thing. I went home, I told my mom. My mom was more confused than I was because she was like, you can't have fibroids. First of all, my mom is a Christian, and you know how Nigerian Christian mothers are. Uh, the sun shall not smite you by day, and so that kind of mentality. So my mom was like, "Oh no, sorry, you don't have fibroids. That's not possible." But over a while, months after months, it kept getting worse. The pain kept getting worse, significantly. Yes, I tried to overlook it. I tried to just take painkillers, but I had excruciating menstrual pain. I had excruciating menstrual cramp. I was anemic. It was very bad. So I started asking questions. I started talking to like a few friends of mine. None of them had any experience about fibroids. None, they were as confused as I was. So there was no way they could actually assist, except for oh, we have to pray if people are praying for you. And I felt like maybe it would go on its own. But in the next couple of years, I realized that it had gone from one fibroid to three, and then from three to five. And in all of these years, none of these gynecologists were able to actually tell me what to do. None of them were able to prefer like a solution. Some of my friends said, "Oh, you can take these herbs." I took all manner of herbs. My mom, obviously, because you have an only daughter, you're hearing about fibroids, you don't have like a lot of information about it, and you want your daughter to get better. So when somebody says, "Oh, take this herb," she will still, okay, try it and see if it will work. Nothing was working actually. So um, at some point, I started doing very in-depth research. I started looking for fibroid communities in Nigeria. I started asking people who knew somebody that probably had it. I got some context, but not really like a lot. Then I woke up one day, and over these years, I kept praying to God because I knew that there was nothing God could not do. I knew that God. So I also have like a very deep understanding of who God is, especially like with some things that happened in my life. At some point, my mom got ill, And I wouldn't say the only reason why she's alive today is because we prayed, but I'll just say it's the mercy of God. So, but because of that situation, I had a very deep conviction about who God is and how He comes through for people. God is not somebody you bribe. God genuinely loves you, and when He does, He shows up for you in ways that you can't even explain. So that's the kind of conviction I had about God. And so I kept saying to myself, I can get healed. I'm too young to go and get married to somebody I'm not interested in. I'm too young to go and have a surgery. But over the years, it kept getting worse. And I stopped going to church. Still haven't been in a physical church in the past 5 years. Doesn't mean that I do not still serve God or I don't worship God. Every day, or my relationship with God has gotten worse or anything, but just, I don't know, I don't know, I felt very isolated. It was a very trying period for me, because in Nigeria, it's not a very wonderful experience telling people you have fibroids. You don't want to go through that. It's not funny. So at the end of the day, I decided that since I wasn't going to get healed after praying, I might as well just get the surgery done and hope that I do not I hope I make it. So I got that conviction last year. And I also sort of think that then God's there talking to me. He's there telling me healing doesn't always come from just praying and it disappearing. Surgery is also a form of healing. Surgery is also a form of me telling you that I love you. Surgery is also a form of me telling you that I'm looking out for you. And how I knew that was because eventually, how I actually got the surgery that I went in for was a friend called me. She told me that, and this is somebody I just met, I think about 2 months ago. She told me, 2 months prior to when she informed me about the surgical procedure, she told me her church was having a surgical mission, and they were going to also be treating people who had fibroids. I had never spoken to this lady prior to this time. The only time we had spoken was the first time I met her and we spoke. And then I had mentioned about the fibroids thing, and I didn't know she even took like note of it. And then she called me after like a few months, say, "Oh, Favour, I just thought about you now. My church is having a surgical mission, and part of the things they're going to be concentrating on is treating people with fibroids. So I think that you might actually want to try." And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll go." It's different when you go for a surgical mission that is being organized by a medical outreach, but this was organized by church. I don't know if I can call the name of the church. It's actually on my page. So it's Elevation Church. So they were organizing like a surgical outreach, and I went. And that was when I knew that God never actually left me. He was actually involved. When I went there, I was very certain that everything was going to be okay. We had pastors on ground. We had missionaries on ground. We had doctors, gynecologists. We didn't just have we had generalists, and where we also had specialists. So it's not about saying you have a doctor, you have a gynecologist, you have opticians, you have dietitians. There were a lot of people on ground. So I felt like okay, this is actually for me. I also met people who also had fibroids as well. So it's when you walk into a hospital to have a myomectomy done, probably it might just be you for that particular day. But when I went in for this outreach, I met people who had fibroids. I was the youngest person amongst the multitude of people who were going in for fibroid surgery, but I didn't feel alone. I felt like I had community because we were all discussing, "Oh, how's your own? Like, how do you feel? What are your symptoms like?" So I felt like, oh, this is what I've been asking for the longest. All the years I've been looking for like answers. I've been looking for people with similar like experiences, just like for us to just hold each other accountable or hold our hands together and just go through this. I felt like at some point, like I got this eventually. So I wasn't scared anymore. I had community. I had people with the same experience. We had people praying on ground. And we went in for the surgery. Surgery was about 4 or 5 hours, if I can remember. And then I came out. It was, I don't know, it's one of those experiences that changes your life forever. And then you understand how God is always involved. God is always involved.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. You know, you mentioned that there was a time you stopped going to church, right?
Mhm.
So you stopped going to church because you had prayed so much, you had trusted for a miracle, and it didn't come through, right? And you stopped going to church. What was that period like, and how, at what point did you find God again in the whole process?
So part of the reasons why I stopped going to church wasn't because um I didn't want to be Christian anymore, or I was particularly, yes, I was angry at God, but it was also because of the condition. So I was always tired. I was always tired. I could barely stand for 15 minutes without getting tired. I was always tired. I had resigned from 2 jobs like in the past 5 years. So it was extremely difficult. And I know that's not an excuse, but I think I would, at that point, anything that looked like I was going to distance myself from God was, for me, it was, I would rather take it because, maybe I've been praying to you since, did you answer me? So it was, I don't know, like, I was always, and I used that as an excuse. I was like, God, you said, I'm tired. Me, I'm very, very tired. If you wanted me to come to church, you would have healed me. So that was like mostly like kind of the kind of mindset I had at that point. I was like, if you want me to be in physical service, heal me now. But so this was me emotionally blackmailing God, and God doesn't work with emotional blackmail.
Mm.
I also think that I needed to experience that for me to actually have the kind of um, in-depth relationship that I have with Him now. Like I said, I haven't been to a physical church in the past 5 years, but in the past 5 years, I can say that my relationship with God has grown and it's even more solidified because now I had to go through something very personal. It's different when somebody's telling you their story. When it's your story, you have context. When it's your story, you know what you went through. When it's your story, you realize that something your father and your mother could not do for you, it's only God that actually came through. A lot of people had fibroid surgeries and died. I didn't die. So you just know, and there were so many things that were proof that God was present with me. So I now know that I needed to go through what I went through for me to have the kind of relationship that I have now. And I now understand that my life is a channel for replicable miracles. So I think that I would say that I'm grateful that I went through that phase because now I have very in-depth conviction. If you look at me, you know that God actually heals. So yeah.
So Favor, are you saying that your withdrawal from church forced you to
Mhm,
find God and
mhm.
discover God all over again?
Yes, I would definitely say that. I would say that because I'll say that because the ideology of how we humans think is that we think we're in control. We think that we are in control of our lives. We can take care of ourselves. And then when something happens to you that is outside your control, you then start to look for God. And this is not me saying that we don't worship God every day, because I do that. But then when because it's a cycle. So it starts from the diagnosis. I learned that I had fibroids, and I'm like, oh God, please help me. Oh God, please help me. And then it goes from that to, God, I'm not seeing the healing I'm praying about. And then you get frustrated, you get tired. The symptoms get worse. You probably lose a lot of things in the process, your job, your probably even lose like a couple of friends. I lost my identity for over 5 years. I became a recluse. So it's like I didn't know who I was anymore. And then you're trying to find who you are, trying to be alive, you're just trying to do a lot of things. And it seems like God is answering too slow. How long does it take you to heal me? If this is like, I'm just saying how my conversations with him, how long will it take you to heal me? Like, I've been praying since every day I pray. Why are you not answering me? And then it goes from that to anger, and then it goes to resentment. And then when you realize, Favour, after all your resentment and anger, nobody's going to love you like God. Nobody's going to
Mm.
actually take care of you like God. And then eventually I then started to understand that healing comes in different form. Healing doesn't mean you're waking up and your fibroids has disappeared. Healing can come in different forms. I needed to go through that myomectomy procedure for me to meet community. I needed to meet all of the women that I met during that process for me to understand the gravity of what fibroids does to other women. I now realized that all the time I was angry at God, there were people who had it severely worse. people, like I met a lady there who was probably like 3-4 years older than me. She had a hysterectomy, meaning that she took out her entire uterus. That could have been me, but I needed to have seen that process and procedure and meet all of those people in real time for me to actually understand that God has been preserving me in those 5 years. So sometimes some of the experiences that we go through that makes us hate God or not have a very strong relationship with him is just, the way I look at it is just us like going through a phase that actually like reconvinces us that God is actually God. You can't drag that position with him. So
Yeah, you're very correct. Trying moments and trying periods can do two things. It can either draw you closer to God for you to rediscover God
exactly.
for yourself, or it can draw you away. And I'm glad that it did not draw you away, but it got you
I'm also glad.
person of God. And I always say this. Sometimes we go through things because of the kind of future that God has for us. And it just needs to strengthen you. And it's like 10 years from now, I know where Favour will be. So I need a faith. I need a understanding who I am to be very clear without an iota of doubt. And it takes us through periods like that. And maybe this was it for you. He just wanted you to discover him for yourself, not the God that you learn about in church, but come to me, let me show you who I am. And that's just really, really good. Thank you for sharing that. So overall, what part would you say your faith played in the entire journey up until, healing and your recovery process?
I had to learn certain things. Part of which is I learned that Isaiah is actually my favorite part of the Bible. It's actually my favorite part, my favorite chapter in the Bible for some very strange reason. Maybe because of what I've experienced, but Isaiah speaks to me. Isaiah speaks to my life. And I say that because Isaiah is the book of Isaiah it's like God writing a love letter to his children and keeping it with them and letting them know that no matter whatever it is that you face in life, if you go through Isaiah, the entire chapter, the entire book of Isaiah, you would understand what I mean. There are parts in Isaiah that you read and then you can literally wake up somebody who's dead and they become alive. That is the power in that book. And that's one of the parts in the Bible that built up my faith in the past 5 years. When God says, no matter what comes your way, I will stand by you. It's not an affirmation. It's not a word of encouragement. That is conviction. That is a reminder. That is me telling you, that's God telling you that no matter what it is that you face, I've got your back. So I think that my faith has grown tremendously, and some days my faith weren't so strong, but I would say that on some other days when my faith wasn't so strong, God was able to like encourage me and push me to reading certain parts of the Bible that opened my eyes to see how much my faith needed to be built up for that season of my life. So
when you were telling us about your experience earlier, you mentioned finding a community, and you said that maybe that was one of the reasons why you had to go through that process. So what does that community mean to you now, even after the journey? What does that community mean to you?
Yeah, so I ran into one of the ladies from the surgical mission. She's slated to have her surgery, I think, in a few months. And she was just like, how does it feel being fibroids free? How are you feeling now? And this is somebody who is like almost the same age as my mom. And it was very touching. I shared some happy tears. Like it just feels like I now have like a community of people that speak a language that we both understand. So like I said, there's just a lot. God is a very funny. I tell people God is very funny. So sometimes the experiences that when you look at it in hindsight, when you were going through it, it wasn't funny. But when you look at it in hindsight, you realize how God is such a master planner. Nobody writes the best script as he does. And I'm grateful that now I went through something that should have weighed me down, did weigh me down, but what I came out of or the additions that I got from that experience, I don't take it for granted. Community, healing, faith, I don't take it for granted.
Wow, that's good. So my question before the last question, what was the journey of recovery like after the surgery, right? Because I was trying to read up on the surgery that you went through, and what was it like recovering? And the people that you met during that period, did they play any part in your recovery? And does the surgery mean that you can never ever get fibroid again?
Oh my God. Mm, mm. Okay, so I would say that one of the reasons why I obliged to come on Faith Stories is because there's an interconnection between faith and healing. It's me talking about my healing story, but then there's also the aspect of faith. And I see how it's very interconnected. Um, so unfortunately, no. There is a 60 to 70% chance that I might have fibroids again. But we're praying that that's not going to be my story. And I didn't know this. I actually did not. I know that yes, when you go in for a myomectomy, they tell you, oh, you might have it again. You just have to be more careful and all of that. And that's why I said in Nigeria, there's just a lot of work to be done about maternal health issues. There's not a lot of information about fibroids, or at least maternal health issues in general. When I came out of surgery, my recovery, and I'm still currently like in the recovery phase. So when I came out of surgery, I was so excited. Yes, I took about like a month, 2 months to get better. I had to start learning how to walk again. There's just a lot of things you have to start doing from scratch. It's almost like it's like having a C-section. So it's a major surgery. So you have to take out about 2 months to actually heal. Now, in that healing process, there were so many things I couldn't eat. But when I started to get better, out of excitement, I started eating things that I knew I hadn't eaten in a long time, because I felt like, oh, I'm now better, I'm happy. A lot of things, I'm now back to normal. Like, I was happy because this thing stole my life for about 5-6 years. That's like a healthy early 20 lady. And then you have 6-7 years of your life stolen from you. So I just got elated, very excited. I was taking soda, taking all of these things. And then I like to call her my fellow fibroid sister. We had the surgery at the same time, just some days apart. Now, she then called me. We call each other to, how are you feeling now? What are your symptoms like now? Do you feel better now? She then started saying, oh, Favour, you have to go on what we call a restrictive diet. There's so many things you can't eat anymore. And I'm like, are you serious? She was like, yes. Yes, exactly. I was like, what? She was like, for example, the normal bottled water you drink, you're supposed to stop that. You're supposed to start taking alkaline water. I'm like, what is alkaline water? She was like, I thought you knew. I'm like, no, I didn't know, because nobody told me that. So the thing is, after there is the process of realizing you're diagnosed, there is the process of going through the fibroid itself. Then after the surgery is another life entirely. You have to go on a restricted diet for life. Like I said, this is why community is so important now, because imagine if I had gone for this surgery by myself out of anger, or if I did not allow God just take control, I probably wouldn't have met all of these people who now are so instrumental to life after surgery, because nobody told me about restrictive diet. Nobody told me about nutrition. Nobody told me about exercise. Nobody told me that in the next 1 year, you most likely might have fibroids again. So now, because I'm in a community, apart from the community that I'm trying to build for other people, the community that I come from now, sisters who went through the same process, where I'm now learning how, oh, you don't eat certain things, you need to stop doing certain, you have to start exercising, and how these things are so instrumental to the life after surgery. So now I'm now on a restricted diet. I have to exercise very frequently. I have to cut out red meat. So I don't eat red meat anymore. There's something I don't take soda. I don't use vegetable oil to cook anymore. It has to be olive oil. There is a lot. There is a lot. I have to take cruciferous vegetables. There's just a lot. So I have to do all of these things so that it doesn't come back. because there is a 70% chance that it might come back. And from the community, in that same community, there are a lot of women who had surgeries less than 2 years ago, and the fibroids is back. So this is why community is so important, and it's playing such a vital role in my life right now. So yes.
Wow. Wow. That's I'm trying to take it
That's a
all
lot to unpack.
in. Yeah, I'm trying to take it all in because you said something that what if you had gotten angry and just want to do it yourself? Chances are that you probably will have gotten the fibroid again because you wouldn't know what to stay away from. But in the process of the healing journey, God gave you a community that you can lean on each other. You can share,
Exactly.
things with people. So, wow, thanks for sharing your story and how you, I would say you literally wrestled with God.
Yeah, I did. I
Okay,
did.
so
I did.
just
I did.
last words. What message of encouragement or hope would you like to share with anyone that might be going through what you went through 5 years ago or what you're currently still trying to work and trust God, by faith that this is a one battle, is not going to come back again. How would you like to encourage anyone going through similar challenges, and what advice would you give them, like practical things that they can do based on your experience?
There's just a lot of things that you it's a lot. When you go through things like this, you learn even the littlest things. You start to understand how God is consistently looking out for you, even in ways that you're not even seeing. So if for anybody who is going through something like this, I'll tell you to wrestle with God. And why I would say that is this. I'm lucky to have a mom alive and family who can actually stand and support me. I have friends as of today who have told me that they have partners who have left them because they told them that they had fibroids. Imagine losing somebody who is
Really?
supposed to be your partner. Yes, yes, somebody who is, and that's because there's not a lot of awareness about things like this. So when you hear fibroids, the assumption is, oh, this person can't give birth anymore. Their uterus is damaged or something of that sort. So that's the aspect. So you have a lot of men who don't really get the context, and then you see them act erratic. That's because they do not have like the awareness, which is very important. Why the awareness aspect is very important. But also, like I said, for anybody who's going through this, I'll tell you to wrestle with God. Wrestle with God, because there are people who their faith will carry them through the 5 years, 3 years, the timeline in which they would have this condition. While there are some people whose faith will not be able to carry them, there are people who would probably denounce God during that process. But what I'll tell you is, like I said, wrestle with God. God is going to lead the 99 to come back for you. That's one thing with him. Even if you denounce him, he's going to come back for you. It's facts. So wrestle with him, regardless of the procedure you decide to go for, either if it's a myomectomy, a hysterectomy, a UFE procedure. Just know that his hand is involved in everything. And I like to tell people all the time, healing can come in different processes or procedures. Healing doesn't necessarily mean God making your fibroids disappear. Healing can be God sending you a gynecologist who understands what you're going through, who is able to hold your hand until the very end. Healing can be God sending you a friend who you've never met before, or somebody who's just going to call you consistently to check up on you and know how you're doing. Healing can be you meeting a man who you've never met before, just saw you, likes you, loves you, and loves you through the entire process till you come out of it. So healing is in different forms, and God knows how to send you the healing that is suitable for your own story, for your own breakthrough. So wrestle with God, because at the end of the day, when you're done wrestling with him, your answer would come. So I'll tell you, wrestle with God. Once you're done wrestling with him, build up your faith. When you can, try to build up your faith, because it will carry you to the very end. Also, for anybody who's going through fibroids, I just want to tell you, it's not a death sentence. You can actually live a very beautiful life. My friends know that right now, Favour is on fire. Me, I'm about to take back my 5 years that fibroids took from me. So I want anybody who is currently going through that condition to know that there is life after fibroids, and we are rooting and waiting for you. We can't wait to have you come back to yourself, because it's like resojourning back to yourself. So there's life waiting for you outside fibroids. So we can't wait to have you on this other side of life, because it actually feels good. I can't remember feeling like this in the past 6 years of my life. So it feels extremely, extremely, extremely good. I feel like I can take over the world. And also, like, watch what you eat. I don't know. I know sometimes you can do everything right and these things still happen. You can literally eat right and it will happen. But just watch what you eat, try to exercise. Body movement is always very important. Just try to have a clean diet. That also helps as well.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Wrestle with God. That's what I'm going to take away today. Wrestle with God. And one thing I would just like to say is it's okay to wrestle with God. God is not afraid of his feelings. He's not faced by it to say, oh, Favour is angry today. Why would she be angry? He understands. So stay. Be angry, be sad, be disappointed, express
exactly. Express yourself.
And if you look at most of the great men in the Bible, even David, he was vulnerable. I think the word is just be vulnerable. Don't think that God is that God that how will he feel if he knows that I'm angry?
Feel.
Put to him, praise the Father. So be open, be transparent, and it will help you to walk through your feelings up until the point of revealing the purpose of the journey to you, up until the point of healing. True. So be angry, but don't leave. Be angry, don't leave his presence. Yeah. I hope you've been thoroughly blessed today. And I hope that
I have.
Okay, thank you.
I have. Thank you so much for having me, Odu.
Yeah, thank you very much for honoring.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We pray that
you're welcome.
God's healing will be permanent upon your life and affliction will not arise again in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Look what I fathom or comprehend this love you give. Tell me, where do I begin? Oh, look at my hands up. Kimake be cherubim. Tabi said I feel alone. Low, Timo, you want to fish, Shobora. Your mercy, your goodness, in my finger and I feel it. Oh, I see it. Gratitude is it.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you're not following this channel, I don't know what you're doing though. Subscribe, set your reminder so that you can know when we post new episodes. I hope you've been blessed today. Until we come your way again next episode, God bless you.